G'day, welcome back to the 40 channel. So, it's time to get serious. We're going to put the head back onto the block. Now, I've done a few little bits and pieces to the block off camera. I've had a pretty lousy week. I've lost my voice. It's only just coming back now. So I filmed little bits and pieces without doing any talking. So we've got the sump back on. Sump with the brand new gasket on. Use some Chemtools gasket sealant. Very straightforward, not much going on to that. As I said last time, there is a disclaimer on this stuff. I'm not an engine building workshop. So everything you see me do with this engine, please double check it and just don't take it for granted. Hey, and I really encourage you guys that are throwing these comments on there with these little tips or things that I may have missed that I've got to go back and sort out. Thank you for doing that, because as I said, this is fairly foreign to me really. Following the Toyota F repair manual, this has been an absolute little champion of a book. So just following this book through step by step. So pretty much like in life, if you want to hear from God's word, you read the Bible. If you want to fix a Toyota F motor, you go to the repair manual. It's fairly simple. Righto, let's get into it, eh? Right, the oil pressure regulator. That was all done off camera. We stripped it all down. It was fairly straightforward, fairly simple, nothing really to it. We'll show you that, put that back on, and let's get the head on. Okay, this is where I'm sure some of you guys will comment, close your eyes, or even turn the video off altogether. That's okay. But we're gonna use the original head bolts. Now I know most of you guys are probably out there saying, I shouldn't probably do this and I should be getting brand new head bolts. They have a bit of a stretch factor in them when you torque them up. Being a Toyota old motor and having a chat with a few different people, I'm pretty sure I can get away with using these head bolts again. It's not a high performance, high output motor. As far as I can tell, this is the first time it's ever been stripped down before. These bolts have only ever been torqued up once, and we're going to take the risk and we're going to use them. Let's get into it. I just had all this covered with lint-free cloth. The reason I used lint-free and not just a sheet or something like that was this way I'm not going to drop any little bits of fluff or anything like that into any of the cylinders or down in between the rings or anything like that. That's the idea of it anyway. So we'll just clean all that up best we can. You might have noticed the block is all painted as well. Now I actually painted that with a paintbrush. I found I had a little bit more control of a paintbrush. I didn't have to go and mask everything off. I didn't have to try to spray it. I also got a thicker cover down using a paintbrush. We used the Galmax MPR, and it is a really solid, tough paint. I spoke to Chemtools directly, asked them about using this as a paint on the engine block. Now they pretty much said that there should be no dramas using it, and it has some type of, oh, I could get this wrong, maybe a polymer or something like that in it. It's going to withstand a bit of heat, also keep the moisture out, as well as being a corrosion protection. Right, on the head gasket. Now, as you guys know, I've already spoken about this. I got this from the States, from fjparts.com. Now, you don't have to just be in the States, but if you are in the States, fjparts.com, absolute go-to. Now, you guys in Australia, if you're after this type of stuff and you're only after one piece, unfortunately, postage can be quite expensive. Now, luckily for you guys, I recommend you go check out toyopat.com.au. Now, this guy has a whole lot of different bits and pieces, especially for your earlier Toyota Landcruisers, which is really cool. Right, a head gasket. Nothing else goes on but the head gasket. We clean to the surfaces, drop the head straight on. It's pretty straightforward, you can't really get it wrong. If all your holes line up, you know you got it on the right way. You can't get it on back to front. So we had to make a new gasket. So we cleaned the little piston up with Scotch-Brite pad. This was the O-ring, it was damaged, so we went and got just a new O-ring, just straight down to the auto shop. Took the old one down and measured it up. So I'll put the O-ring on. New O-ring. Righto, we'll soak the inside. Piston on the spring. Slide that spring all the way down. A bit more in there. Screw that down and put this back onto the block with the gasket. Screws onto here. Right. Righto, so that's it. Oil, pressure regulator, rebuild, very simple. I didn't show much of it. Basically strip it all down, clean all your parts up, make a new gasket just out of some gasket paper. That's 0.4 gasket paper, 0.4 oil gasket paper. Put it all back together and then we can check our pressure later on. Just before I chuck the gasket on, the ChemTools Rapid Stick 8518 gasket sealant. This is just going to ensure that our gasket is going to seal up perfectly and we're not going to have any dramas later on down the track. Righto, so 2 kilos or 14 foot-pound of pressure with our torque wrench. Now I've just grabbed 4 M12 big bolts, and all I'm going to do is just use these as a guide, a bit of a guide to slide the head on. Righto, so they're going to be like my guide pins, I guess. I've just cut the head off a bolt, slide the head onto the block. That way I know that the gasket's not going to move around too much, that the head's going to be nicely lined up, and it should slide directly straight over to what we want to do, hopefully. Now I've just gone over the gasket. Some parts have just got some little pieces left on. I've just pulled all those little bits and pieces off to make sure that nothing can fall down inside the cylinders or down into the water jacket. I've made sure the machine surface of the head is very clean. I've just gone over that whole thing with a razor blade again, wiped it all down, dried it all off. Let's put this thing together. That works fantastic. Let's take out our guide pins. As you saw in a previous episode, the head has already been built, so all the valves have been done. Righto, so I've put some anti-seize on every single one of these head bolts just before we install them, just so they don't go and dry. And if it has to come off again, hopefully it'll be easier to come off. And then there's a tightening sequence that we need to follow as we start to tighten them up, just nip them up, and then we'll follow that same sequence as we torque it up as well. I'm sure some of you guys have already picked up on this, but total rookie mistake here. and don't do this. We rebuilt the head, put it all together, looked fantastic. I was really happy, but we can't get our center head bolt in. So we're just going to take the rockers off, put our center head bolt in, torque them all up, put it back together. Would have all had to come out anyway for our push rods, so. Righto, let's torque all these head bolts up in the sequence that is laid out in the manual. So 11.5 to 13.5 kilos, 83 to 98 foot-pound. So we'll start at number 1. Righto, our oil delivery pipe. So I'm going to slide this in, then we're going to put our lifters in and just keep building it in as per the manual. So far so good. Righto, so there's a bit of bending and manipulating to get this oil delivery pipe out. So there'll be a bit of bending and manipulating to get everything to line back up again. So our threads all line up, we can screw them on. Just going to clean up our valve lifters really good. Light smear of the Molly-Tack grease. Well, you're not going to believe this. I am one push rod short. I've misplaced it, I've sat it down, I don't understand what I've done. I've just been looking everywhere in my shed for it, I cannot find it. Everything was bagged and tagged. For some reason, one push rod missing out of this bag. I'll just keep searching because it has to be in my shed, surely. It cannot have gone anywhere else. We'll find it. Righto, really dumb story. So, as I said before, I lost one of my push rods. Now, confession, this is what happened. So, I pulled all my push rods out when I was stripping the motor down. I had them all in order on the workbench so they wouldn't get them mixed up. And then they rolled off the work. I knocked them and they rolled off the workbench and landed on the floor. So I just picked them all up, put them in a bag, but I'll figure it out, work it out later. Anyway, a couple of months down the track, here we are, we're putting the motor back together. And I thought to myself, well, I'm a bit buggered here. There's no way of telling which one goes where. So I'll just have to bite the bullet, we'll drop them all in place, and they'll just have to bed themselves back in when the motor gets running. I think that there shouldn't be too much of a drama. I had a look at them all and they look pretty much evenly worn, so hopefully we'll get away with it. But here's the other kicker. As you saw, I was putting them in and I was one short. That was actually 2 days ago. I've spent 2 days in this shed, cleaning it up, stripping it out, crawling on my hands and knees, looking up everything. My eldest daughter came down here after she heard that I'd lost it. And she walked straight up to a box and pulled it out and said, "Is this what you're looking for?" 2 days of looking. So anyway, it's the last push rod back in. Put all the rockers back on, torque it all back up. Man, this motor is getting close to being finished. It is super exciting. Alright, so that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for your support. Hey, and I really appreciate you guys dropping comments and things that I might be missing or things that you might do differently. It's really good to be able to share that stuff and for other people to be able to see it so that they don't make any mistakes that I could be making and having to go back and fix them up. So feel free to leave a comment, and until next time, take care of yourselves.